right, it's Sunday night, so if you remember from my plan, we're doing spaghetti. There are a lot of different ways to do spaghetti. You can make it fancy or you can make it simple. We're going simple. So the first thing I've got probably about 1.5 pounds of hamburger here in my skillet. I'm just going to turn it on and let that brown. As this is browning, I'm going to put some seasoning in it. If you don't have any seasoning at home, you don't have to put it in there. When you put the marinara in, it's got seasoning in it, so it'll be fine. Then I am going to add some Italian seasoning, some minced onion. My kids don't like to bite into real onion. And some minced garlic. I don't really measure things. I just kind of put it in there. All right, as the hamburger browns, you just want to make sure all the pink is going away. You know it's done, so you can see I've still got pink in there. That means I'm not finished yet. Once all the pink is gone, that's how I know that my hamburger is all browned. So just keep kind of mixing it up and stirring it around as it sizzles. All right, you can see all the pink is gone now. It's just brown hamburger, so we're good to go. Now, we got to get the grease off the hamburger. This is really important. Don't ever put grease, hamburger grease, bacon grease, down your drain. If you've ever noticed that kind of grease, after it gets cool, it dries and it gets hard. If you put that down your drain, it's going to get hard in the drain and then it's going to clog up your drain. So don't do that. Have a plan. So I have, right here in my sink, I have a strainer and I have a bowl. So I'm just going to dump the whole thing into the strainer and then the bowl's going to catch all the grease. And then later, I will take that outside or something and dump it. But you can't see my sink. It's right here in front of me. You can see I've got my hamburger in the strainer now, and all the grease is draining into that bowl. So now I'm not putting that nasty old grease into my sink and down my drain. I'll take that bowl out and dump it later. All right, you can do the noodles at the same time you do your hamburger. I have a cooker here. I've got it about half full of water, and I'm going to put that on the stove. Turn it on high, and I need that to boil, okay? As soon as that starts to boil, and not just the tiny little bubbles, but like a rolling boil where it's really boiling, as soon as it starts to boil, I'm gonna add in my spaghetti noodles, but not until it starts to boil. It's boiling, so we're gonna put our noodles in. On the box, it'll tell you how long to boil the noodles. So once it starts boiling, you put them in. This box says to boil them for 9 to 11 minutes. So we're gonna do that. Now, typically with spaghetti, I break the noodles in half. All right, and that's the whole box. You may not need the whole box for your family. I got a bunch of eaters around here, so we're gonna do the whole box. Now, I don't know if you've ever boiled noodles or something like that before. Lots of times the pot will boil over. So, here's a little trick. Take some butter. A little chunk of that butter in the pot. Take the stick of butter and run it around the top of the cooker. And butter will not let the pot boil over now. I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes and then we'll take out our noodles. Now, as you cook your noodles, you do want to stir them every once in a while just to keep them from sticking to the bottom of your pan. I'm also going to put in a little bit of salt. Timer just went off. My noodles are done. So we're going to drain them just like we did the hamburger. I've got the same strainer here, but this time I don't need a bowl because all that's coming off the noodles is water and it can go straight down the drain. I've got my skillet here that I had my hamburger in. I'm just going to take these noodles and put them right in the same one with the hamburger. Now I have 2 jars of marinara. I might add more. I'm going to pour that marinara right in the same skillet. I'm gonna put just a little bit of water in the jar. Shake it up so I get all of the sauce. I'm gonna add another jar of marinara. Different brand, doesn't matter. All right, perfect. I'm gonna stick it on the stove and get it warm. Now with spaghetti, some people use sausage instead of hamburger. Some people use sausage and hamburger. Sometimes you get a dish and you can put a layer of this on the bottom and then put like some ricotta cheese or some Parmesan, mozzarella, even cream cheese, and then another layer of spaghetti, put some mozzarella on top, make a spaghetti bake. There's lots of different ways you can dress it up or do things differently when you make spaghetti, but that's kind of the simple way to do it. All right, it's Monday morning. The spaghetti's all gone and we need more food for tonight. So this is kebab night. So what I'm gonna do with the chicken, I've got my chicken breast here. Here's what you need to know when you're dealing with raw chicken. You need to make sure you wash everything after you're finished. Wash your hands. The goo that comes off of chicken when it's raw can be dangerous. You don't want anybody to ingest that. You don't want it to get on any of your other food. So just as you cut up chicken, you wanna make sure that you are not getting any of that on any other surfaces, or if you do, you clean it up. So when I cut up my chicken, the first thing I do, see all the fatty parts? I'm just gonna cut off all of the fatty stuff. Now, disclaimer, before you cook anything, please make sure that your parents have given you permission and that you know it's okay for you to be cooking, dealing with a knife, cutting up chicken, that kind of stuff. I need this chicken to be in pieces about like this, because I can slide that right on the kebab. So I'm gonna get all this chicken cut up into pieces about that size. And then as I cut it up, I am going to put it in this gallon-sized Ziploc bag. And I'm gonna dump this bottle of marinade in there. And then I'll stick it at the fridge. And while we're at school today, this chicken will be marinating and it'll be good to go by the time we get home. All right, I'm all finished cutting up my chicken. I've got it here in the bag. Now remember what I said, anytime you cut up chicken, you just want to make sure that any surface that could have gotten that chicken on it, you clean up. Because you do not want that getting on any of your other food. Okay, so now I'm gonna take this bag of chicken. I've got my bottle of marinade. Now I'm going to put this bag in the refrigerator, and tonight when we get home from school, we'll do the rest of the stuff that goes on the kebabs and get those on the grill. It's Monday after school, and we're going to get the rest of these kebabs going. Remember, we cut up the chicken this morning, but we're also going to do pineapple, sausage, and mushrooms on our kebabs. So I'm going to start with the pineapple. Got the top and the bottom cut off. I'm just going to take my knife and I'm going to cut off the skin, the outside of it. You can buy pineapple at the store that's already cut up and you don't have to do this, but it is a lot more expensive. It's a whole lot cheaper if you just buy a whole pineapple and cut it up yourself. And now I'm just going to slice my pineapple off of the core. So you can see right here in the middle of the pineapple, there's like a circle. That's the core. You don't want to eat that. And then I'm going to throw that middle core away. You can see I'm just slicing the pineapple then in chunks big enough to put on the kebabs. Next is the sausage. I have everything cut up and ready. Now when you grill, there's a lot of ways you can grill. We're doing kebabs. So these are kebab skewers. These are the metal ones. So after we use them, I just put them in the dishwasher and wash them, and I can use them again next time. You can also get like wooden disposable ones that after you use them, you just throw them away. Or you could put all of this stuff in like a grill basket and put it on the grill. Or if you didn't want to cut it up, you could just put it on the grill as it is in whole pieces of chicken and that kind of stuff. Lots of different ways to grill stuff. I just like kebabs because they're kind of fun. So to assemble the kebabs, we just start putting all this stuff on there. Now remember, this chicken is uncooked. I don't want to touch the chicken and then eat a piece of pineapple or something while I'm doing this. Once I touch that chicken, I don't need to eat any of this stuff. Obviously, we're going to put it all in the skewer together because it's going to cook together. But you don't want to eat anything that has touched raw chicken until it's been cooked. So there's one kebab all done and ready to go on the grill. And as they are on the grill grilling, we'll continue to brush more and more of the marinade on top of all of it so that everything's seasoned. All of the kebabs are on the sticks, and we're gonna take these downstairs to the grill. There are gas grills and there are charcoal grills. Ours is gas, so we have a propane tank. You wanna turn that on first, and then we'll light the grill. Most newer grills, and even some older ones, have a button that you can push to ignite and light the grill. Ours is a little bit older, so my husband's using a lighter to get it lit and started. Now, if you have a charcoal grill, you'd actually need to buy a bag of charcoal and light it and get it warm. He's adjusted the knobs to the temperature that he wants, and he's gonna let that heat up for just a little bit before we actually put the kebabs on the grill. So anytime you're cooking meat, whether you're grilling it or putting it in the oven or anything like that, you always want to make sure it's done all the way. So chicken is probably the most important, or turkey, any kind of poultry or bird. It has to be done all the way. So chicken or turkey needs to be cooked to 165 degrees. So there are a lot of different thermometers that you can get to use. My husband's got kind of a fancy one down there that he uses on the grill and the smoker, but they don't have to be like that. These are a couple of other thermometers that you can use to check meat. So this one's a digital one, and you stick it in and it gives you a reading on here that tells you what temperature should be. And it even has on there, it tells you what temperature each different type of meat should be at. Or this is another one that's just got like a little gauge on it that you put in there, and it'll tell you the temperature of the meat. Like I said, turkey or poultry, you always want to get to 165 degrees. When it comes to meat, some people like their steaks rare, medium well, medium rare. So it can vary just a little bit, but it still needs to be done. While my husband's grilling, we are going to get some potatoes, green beans, and cornbread in the oven. These are yellow potatoes, so I'm gonna leave the skin on these. I'm gonna cut these up, and I'm gonna put them on a cookie sheet. Like I said, the yellow ones are best for this. These are not the potatoes that I would use to make mashed potatoes or something like that. You can see they're a little more yellow in color. So these are better for just putting on a cookie sheet and baking. Potatoes are all diced up, and I put them on my cookie sheet. I put aluminum foil down because I don't want to scrape potatoes off of this later. I've got some olive oil, so I am just going to drizzle this over the top while the baby eats raw potatoes. It's not very good, is it? It's not cooked. Okay, and then I'm just gonna kind of take my hands and get those potatoes all the way covered in olive oil. Can you put pepper on the potatoes? And I am going to put, this is seasoned salt. Just a little more flavor than regular salt. And I'm gonna start shaking this over the top of these potatoes. There we go. Did you get pepper on them? There we go. Let's pepper them. There we go. That's good. Good job. All right. Then I'm gonna stick these in the oven. The best way to know if a potato is done is to stick a fork in it and make sure it's not still hard. We're going really easy on the bread tonight. We just got a couple rolls of Pillsbury. And according to the can, they go in at 350 for 14 minutes. Now we're gonna throw in some cans of green beans. We are a 3-can household. Don't tell anybody how much butter Miss King puts in the green beans, but we are using a whole stick. And tips for cooking with a baby, just keep giving them utensils that they don't actually need and make them think they're doing something. All right, when you do green beans or corn or anything like that, especially if you're gonna add butter, there's a lot of water in the can. So I'm gonna put this over the top like so and just drain the water out into the sink. Okay, I drained all of the water out of those green beans. There you go, stir them up. Any pot of green beans need some salt and pepper. Leftover kebabs are great if you make some rice and put it over that for lunch another day. It's Tuesday. If you remember, I had paninis on the menu. We do like the really easy version of paninis. Basically, it's the pizza form of a grilled cheese sandwich. Okay, this is as easy as it gets. So I've got all of my bread laid out here on the counter. I'm making 8 sandwiches tonight. All I'm going to do, I've got sliced mozzarella cheese. I am going to put a piece of that on every sandwich. Now I've got some pizza sauce or marinara. I'm going to put that on top of the cheese. Now I got these giant sized pepperonis. You can use regular pepperonis and that's totally fine. If you use regular pepperonis, you're just going to need to use more of them to cover the sandwich. But I'm using these great big ones and I'm going to put 2 on each sandwich. Now we just put that top slice of bread on each one. I will say a trick I learned, the reason I put the pizza sauce in between the cheese and the pepperoni, I learned the first time I did this, if I put that pizza sauce on the bread, then it makes it kind of soggy. So that's why I put it in between the pepperoni and the cheese. Now you just make these just like you'd make a grilled cheese. So if you use a skillet on the stove, that's totally fine just to do that. I've got my great big griddle out here that I use to make pancakes and bacon and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to use it to make the paninis just because it's fast to do them all at once. You want to put butter down. If not, it'll just kind of sear the bread and turn it black. But when you use butter, it grills the bread. So it's more of like a crispy buttery instead of just a burnt black. So you can slice this butter and just kind of put it all on the griddle or all in your skillet. I do it like my mom did. And I just take the butter and I make a spot everywhere I am going to put a sandwich. So I just kind of cover the whole thing in butter. And then I throw my sandwiches on there. Just kind of press them down. And that fast, we have a whole plate full of paninis. It's Friday morning and we're going to get a roast in the crock pot so we can eat quickly when we get home after school today. You want to start with the roast. There are different kinds. There's ground roast, there's rump roast. Just put it in the bottom of the crock pot. And now we're going to add in some carrots. My baby just dropped one in the water. Throw in our bag of baby carrots. Next, we're going to add some mushrooms. And now we're going to make the sauce that we pour over the roast. So I've got just some water here in a bowl. And into that water, I am going to add some zesty Italian seasoning. And really, I'm just using the water to get these mixed together. It could just be a little bit of water. Now we're going to use some ranch seasoning. And there are a lot of different roast recipes. This may not be the one your family uses, but it's the one we like. And now I'm going to use a package of brown gravy mix. And after I add those 3 packets, we just take the whisk and mix it all together. All right, we pour that over everything that's in the crock pot. Get everything out of the bowl. We're gonna be gone all day long, so we're gonna set that on low, and it's gonna cook for about 8 or 9 hours today.
If I wanted it done faster, I could put it on high and it would be finished in about 4, but we won't be home by then. Just gonna clean up my mess. And that is a pretty fast supper. This is where the baby turns the crock pot back off, but thankfully I noticed right before we left for school. I just got home and my husband had already peeled, cut up, and boiled the potatoes so they'd be ready to mash when I walked in the door. When you boil potatoes, it really depends on how many potatoes you're boiling and what size chunks you cut them into as to how long they need to boil, but it could be anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. These boiled about 20 to 25 minutes. Really just when you stick a fork in it and the fork goes through without the potato being hard, that's when you know they're ready, but you don't want to overboil them or they get really mushy. If you remember when I baked the potatoes in the oven, we used the yellow potatoes with the olive oil on the cookie sheet. This time for mashed potatoes, I like to use russet or Idaho potatoes. This is 5 pounds of potatoes in this bowl, so it's a lot of potatoes. That's why I use 2 sticks of butter. But it's kind of up to you just how buttery you want your potatoes. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of milk. Always start with less than you think you need because you can always add more milk, but you can't take the milk back out. And if you get too much, your mashed potatoes are gonna be really watery. So just start with a little bit of milk and then you can mash them, and if you need more, you can add more. I'm also gonna throw in some salt. And now I'm gonna start mashing my potatoes. If you have one of those fancy stand mixers that get all the lumps out, that's fantastic. I don't. I just have a little handheld mixer and it does not get out all the lumps. So I always start with an old-fashioned potato masher and get as many lumps out as I can by hand. And then after I've done that, I'll use my handheld mixer to get the rest.
I've done a lot of cooking, but we haven't really talked about recipes. You can find a recipe online for pretty much anything you'd want to make. It goes through all the directions, or you can even go to YouTube and find videos with recipes. Let's look at a recipe now. This is something that I'm going to make for my college kiddo when we go up to see him. I feel like I need to take him something homemade, but he's on a really strict diet with his weightlifting program and everything they're doing for football. So something I can make him is energy bites. They're pretty good for you. They're pretty filling when you eat them, and it's something that he can have with the diet that he's on. I'm not just going to make one batch though. He could probably eat that in one day. I'm going to go ahead and double it. So when you double a recipe, sometimes up at the top, there'll be like a little button where you can hit ×2 or ×3, and then it'll give you online the correct measurements for doubling or tripling it, but not always. So this is kind of where you need your math. If it calls for 1/4 a cup of something, I'm actually going to use 1/2 cup. If it calls for 1/2 cup, I'm going to use a whole cup. So you have to be able to kind of do those calculations. You can write it out or however you need to do it.
We are doubling this recipe, so whatever it calls for over there on the right, we're going to put twice that much. It calls for 1 cup of rolled oats, so we just put in 2 cups of rolled oats. It calls for 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. We put in a full cup. It calls for 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon, so we put in 2 tablespoons. It calls for 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, so we put in 4 teaspoons. It calls for 1/4 cup of flax seeds, so we put in 1/2 cup. A pinch of salt. It calls for 1/3 cup of honey, so we put in 2/3 a cup of honey. It calls for 1 tablespoon of fresh lemon juice, so we'll put in 2 tablespoons. 1/2 a lemon is about a tablespoon, so we'll use both halves of the lemon. And finally, it calls for 1/2 cup of peanut butter, so we'll put in a whole cup of peanut butter. Now we just mix all that together. I'll start with a spatula and then we'll move to our hands. once I get it all mixed up together, I'll start rolling them into balls. They also need to be put in the refrigerator after they're rolled into the Energy Bites, and I will take them to him in the morning.